normal e5 defenses, but going right into a Najdorf, which he plays very, very well. Queen d3. Now this
Queen d3. This was Nordicbeck's speciality.
Yeah, that we just saw in Bucharest. But in his case, he was playing it with the idea of bringing his queen across the third rank to g3. The combination of queen d3 and g3, complete surprise for me. In the words of Sergeant Schultz, I know nothing. Queen d3, g3, Miro, help me out on this one. Fabi versus Anish.
Can I possibly help you out on this one? It's Nordicbeck attack. This is the only Nordicbeck knows.
Well, he's not
Database has 0 games. I mean, if it makes you comfortable, Database on MIP7 has 0 games. Well, there is certain point that, say, the G3 line, which is not very popular with the move G3, very often Black would develop the knight to C6. Right. So if you, instead of this Nordicbeck attack, if you go G3, there's billion lines. You can go E5, you can go G6, but in kind of in a schematic way, this is what Black would be trying to do. Let's say capture on D4, put the... I have to teach myself how to recapture.
Right.
Put the bishop on C6, go E6, and this is like something very typical Scheveningen, right?
Right.
So having the knight on D7, there is a certain point to what White is doing. Says like Black knight's on D7, so I'll go G3. But still, these two do not rhyme to me, to be honest. Like G3, Queen D3, but they kind of do rhyme. Do they belong to the same variation? That's a big question.
For a player of Anish's caliber, it's some kind of moral victory for Fabiano that he's actually caught him this early and making him think, as would I, of course, because, as you say, nobody's ever made the combination of Queen D3 and G3 work. Let's just analyze a few possibilities. What
would you do? E6, E5...
G6.
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 G6, yeah, bishop G2, I guess, bishop G7, castles, or whatever. Yeah, but then, let's think of it. White has, well, potentially lost the tempo, right? The queen does not belong to D3.
That is for
sure. Drop here. Right, Black has played knight to D7, and which is a bigger sin, if you think of it. Because, well, I was talking about Scheveningen. In Dragon, I'm 100% sure, Dragon variation where Black develops bishop on G7, I'm 100% sure this knight belongs here.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's the combination of the bishop on G7 and a knight on C6, applying pressure on the knight on D4, which makes Black's position kind of playable, acceptable, and so on.
If you don't mind, G6 looks perfectly normal.
No, fine. I was just picking a random one.
I want to make a virtue of the fact that my knight on D7, which was provoked to go to D7, I want to go knight E5.
Knight E5 immediately?
Immediately.
Okay. I guess I moved the queen.
Okay. Now the question was Queen E3.
Queen E3, yeah,
because
that's
I was thinking that you wanted to play Queen E2.
Then you would come up with a brilliant...
Queen sacrifice.
Queen sacrifice. I don't know what you're
Bishop to G4.
Okay, let's show Jas's line. Queen E2, which was never on my list at first place.
Queen D6. Bishop
G4.
Yes, F3.
F3.
Queen B6.
Queen B6. Okay.
Now I wanted you to play Bishop E3.
And you wanted me to play Bishop E3.
And I was I could.
But then you can take B2. Stop with this made up line.
It's morning. No, I was going to take on D4 and say,
you don't need to.
I know.
You don't need to.
Simple as best.
Yeah, like knight E5 is not bad, I guess.
Okay.
What puzzles me, the computer does not give E5 as an option, which is like, if you will, one of the Najdorf's kind of standard setups. Because of knight F5, knight C5, queen F3, and it likes white a lot.
Okay.
In this case, it likes white a lot, so the knight on C5 apparently is not where it has to be. And you're going to have to play knight C5 with the tempo. But if you didn't have to, you'd prefer knight b6 controlling d5.
D5
right?
square.
So knight c5, queen f3, the knight on c5 is misplaced. So I presume you can just play your knight off. You go e6, you go queen c7, something along those lines.
Well, again, because I'm anxious to go to the other games, but because Anish is spending a lot of time, I've seen Boris Spassky and many other great names of the past playing knight e5, and let's say you play queen e3, and they do play these e6. Let's just put the knight on g6 variations, and they go, bishop e7 and castles, and the knight on g6, bit of a target, but okay. By the way, after a great think, at least from the rapid chess point of view, not b7, b5,
b6.
b7, b6. So ready to neutralize the long diagonal by putting the bishop on b7. And
it's a nice choice as well.
I think so
like
as well.
It. Can we
Please,
move
where
on?
would you like me to go?
But you mentioned the names of the past.
Yes.
And immediately I just
on.
have to kind of, no, I wasn't thinking like that. I was thinking, if we go to the Ivan Saric against Wesley So, and the
Okay.
reason why is because when I see this particular opening, I'm just thinking of one name,
Bobby
one
Fischer?
name only. Yeah,
Yeah.
Bobby Fischer.
The Fischer,
And I
King's
remember
Indian attack.
teaching people about what to do with this against it,
Mm-hmm.
and I remember they all being like really like impressed when I said, "And now here, white went knight h2," and they're like, "How did you know?"
Right.
And it's just really a schematic way of attack from white. So, what do we think about this particular position?
Well, at one time, I thought it was a great attack. And I saw the games of Bobby Fischer in my 60 memorable games, and he impressed everybody. And then I talked to the modern day grandmasters, and they keep saying to me, "What attack? White has no attack." And they don't. Their chess engines say there's no attack. I always thought it was dangerous, but the modern chess players don't.
Wesley's saying he clearly thinks it's not dangerous. He's gone for this very expansionist plan on the queen side.
Yeah, with b5, pardon me.
Even
with-
pushing, the pawn up to a4, because normally I've been seeing ideas of rook coming to d8 and then a minor piece finding itself on f8 in order just to
Right.
hold the king side together. And there's only been 6 games in the database like this.
Bishop a6, a kind of a prelude that I want to play the move c4, and kind of a French defense where, again, white is getting a lot of, a free hand, yeah, but a lot of play on the king side. Now, wait a minute. Whoa. Move h6 has just been offered. And this is queen d2, knight g4.
This is like the red flag to the bull.
Right.
To the King's Indian attack players.
Exactly.
It's like you could just go knight g4,
And
sack,
you
sack.
get ready to sacrifice on h6. h7, h6, well, it does prevent h5, h6. But Miro, I see that move h6, and very much like Jovi, I see that as,
An invitation.
an invitation to attack.
Well, it could be. So the story about this position,
Please.
because I also associate one name with this one, and it's Fischer, and I've played it, and very often it would just work magic. You do your moves, in something like this, you go knight g5, you never
Yeah.
leave. That's
Right.
very important. So after h6, you deploy the queen. Okay, it's probably, well, even computer agrees. You deploy the queen, you go knight g4, it's a checkmate, not later than move 25.
Right.
Yeah, h5 happens to be a new move. So we do not know in practice how people are supposed to react to h5. Computer's reaction, first line is h7, h6.
Which
So if
was
we trust the computers,
played.
we trust the computers, right? So queen to d2, and
Give me the pawn.
there'll be some questions.
Right?
Well, apparently queen d8 defends against the sacrifice, which is...
Crazy.
So computer either goes queen d8 or first queen a5 offering the queen trade and goes to d8 after queen c1. But since we are interested in the sacrifice, right?
Let's go.
We can try to do it immediately. Well, I'm not sure if I trust this engine, because like when it says you can play rook b8 in this position and be relaxed, like nothing is threatening.
Wow. That is chill.
Maybe is right. I mean, how do we attack here with white.
Exactly.
Knight G4.
Like knight G4.
Knight G4 and then like F6 protected.
Right.
Knight G5 is not a move. Strangely, we might be getting stuck after Knight G4.
I'm thinking I would love to play the rover, rook to E4 to G4, so I've got to get rid of the D5 pawn.
So some C4 move, yeah. Not to mention that there is this knight E5 capture, knight to E5, which looks terrible because bishop G5 and then knight C6, attacking the queen, and bishop H6 and knight D8, rook FD8. Which leaves white a pawn up, but somewhat disappointed, I believe.
Yeah.
Because there is no attack, and potentially these guys are weak.
Rook C8 on the board,
Rook
by the way.
C8, and,
Another way of just
now
completely...
there's a massive invitation to attack, to sacrifice on H6. And incidentally, one of the world's best attackers, the former world champion Garry Kasparov, will be joining us very soon. So
Knight G4, I mean, telegraphing the threat of sacrifice. To my eyes, this looks awesome for white. Is it time? I mean, does black have time to defend on the king side? Queen D8 or bishop F8? Mira, what say the computer? After
Well,
knight
computer
G4?
says you could sacrifice already.
Immediately.
And knight G4 is not bad.
But not necessary, maybe.
Well, it was going knight G4 after bishop takes, pawn takes. So in fact, it's part of the plan.
Okay.
Pizza. Move orders issue, and then you don't really know if it's important or not. So queen A5. I'll just cite the main line of the engine.
Queen A5.
And then it goes back to D8, bishop H6, GH6.
Yes.
C4 white is better. So that's how you play chess.
C4.
Yeah,
Now, I wanted to
you
put-
were absolutely right. So if this pawn, the D pawn disappears,
Yes, what are you doing
No,
here?
it's Bobby Fischer. I mean, look, I read his book. Come on, give me a break. I mean,
so
C4.
if the D5 pawn disappears, then you have the E4 square for the
Bingo.
rook,
Bingo.
potentially the bishop, and so on and so forth.
Life is good.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, but knight G4. I'm looking at your monitor thing, and it gets a
The question mark.
no, not a question mark. It just gets a red X.
Yes, it did. Knight to
didn't
G4. No, but it was just
Yeah,
advertising. Bishop
whatever.
takes
So
pawn.
we could check the line that computer insists on being
Right.
the best. So you take, you go knight G4, but it's kind of the same, or not really? I know, because now Queen A5 would be like terrible. You take and you have Queen F4 tempo.
That's cool.
Yeah, so Bishop H6 arguably was more precise.
Okay.
Is there a way out after Knight G4? Well, not necessarily. The more it kind of keeps thinking, it's not very happy. So Queen D8, indeed C4 is the move still,
Okay.
and puts black in a sort of a Zugzwang situation, if you like. Because you don't like to take, right? So
No.
that we kind of feel intuitively.
Yeah.
Moving this knight leaves F6 unprotected. Moving this knight doesn't make much sense. So Bishop G5 could be critical. Knight takes, can't take with
cannot
the queen
take with the-
because check. So pawn takes, CD5, and it goes into this direction, and it's getting crazy. F4, knight B3, so white will be
my
a rook down. Knight A1, and then you don't care, you take this guy. Let me continue. I mean, it's
to
a
be a
fascinating
computer.
line, right? Check. This is crazy. King G7, Queen F4, Queen F8. White's a rook down, right?
Yeah.
Rook and a piece.
Rook and a piece.
Rook
F1.
here. And what are you doing when you're rook and a piece down? You go for an endgame, right? So this is what's prescribed. And white is checkmating by force. I'm sorry, but that's what it has
It's
to
a
say.
beautiful,
It's a beautiful
variation.
combination if it works.
And if it happens on the board, we are all going to be raising our
Posture.
hats in admiration. So let's have a look at some of the other games, and let's take a look at the clash between the oldest player in the tournament, Levon Aronian, against Gukash, the youngest.
Player. Okay, we're going to do it quickly from the top. Joko Piano, knight f6 early, h3, castles, knight d2, all very standard stuff. Whoa, 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 whoa. It was standard right until this moment. After d5 takes e4, leaving the knight on c6 hanging. Okay. Takes. Okay. Whoa. I wouldn't call this standard at all. Actually, just to point out a quick checkmate here. This is actually a funny one. No, it's not a checkmate. I was going to... Good morning, St. Louis. This is not checkmate. It's a queen, but it's not...
You win the house.
Yeah, win the house, but it's not a checkmate. Knight takes e4, bishop to e3, knight e5, takes, queen e2, and Levon is rolling the dice. He's a pawn up and forcing his opponent to play ultra sharp. But maybe, is this one of those all theories, Miro?
Doesn't look like all theory. I can also check.
It's not one of those theories. It's a unique one. It looks bad, and it is bad. So that's a unique... for white, of course.
White, I mean, because the king is in the center.
How can you possibly have the knight on f1? And so the moment it went wrong, once again, according to this not very deep engine, think the game... No games after d5 even. So Levon, it seems like he must have mixed up things because, knight f1 with the idea to play knight g3 has been seen. Yeah, so the point is they're trying to save up on rook e1 move. So if you castle here, here, like if you castle, then in order to get the knight on g3, you'll have to move the rook first, right? So he's trying to save up on this rook e1 move, but apparently it's not the time. Because d5, and then the best computer has to offer is to drop the bishop here, because you have knight g5. It's not as terrible as you would think, guys.
Okay.
Bishop e6, takes on e6, takes on e4, and you play this endgame being a pawn down, but having kind of a better structure.
Gotcha.
So
Right.
on move 13, white is fighting for equality, which is not great. And the position we have, or rather had, was like really favorable for black after queen e7, but knight d6, seems to be okay nonetheless. Yes, knight d6 is not the most precise, computer criticizes it, but after, say, bishop d3, bishop d7, it's still like compensation at the very least and beyond that.
Well,
And,
there's a king in the center for...
Right, and a win for either of these players is going to be very important for the standings because both of these two, they are there languishing in the middle with 50%. Gukesh, as we remember, lost to Fabiano Caruana in round 7. And Levon Aronian, he's been drawing a few games and left a few points on the table. So a win will definitely be much needed for the pair.
For both of these players. And after the move knight d6, any edge on the clock for either of the players? Because this is a fresh position.
Right, Levon, I've noticed over these last years, has been playing very confidently, even sometimes when it's absolute nonsense.
Right.
He just does it with style and grace.
Elan.
And somehow kind of bamboozles the opponent.
Nepo's my guy. Nepo has been doing that for years. He just kind of plays with ease.
Right. So I was actually shocked that during the break, because I thought that Nepo had very confidently drawn an inferior position against Anish Giri in round 7.
Yeah.
And Miro was like, no. He might have played confidently and quickly, but he was much worse. At one point, losing.
Right. Knight back to d6. We're going to keep an eye on this game. We're going to jump to the game of our tournament leader, Fabiano versus Anish, because a very unique development in the world of the Najdorf occurred as we saw a combination of queen d3 and g3, never before seen. So we'll keep an eye on that. Bishop g2, bishop b7, and we're catching up quickly to the players, but we're going to jump to Zagreb as Christian is with one and only
Garry Kasparov.